Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to CENTalks. Today's session is a meaningful one for all of us. For the past 6 years, CENTalks has been a space where educators have come together every Thursday to learn, reflect, exchange ideas, and grow as a community. Together, we have explored classroom practices, technology, leadership, well being, inclusion, and many other topics that matter to us educators. As we prepare for the next chapter of Cent Talks, today's session gives us an opportunity to pause, reflect on our journey so far, and look ahead to what's coming next. We are excited to share more about the future of CENTalks and its next phase in an upcoming special session. And perhaps there couldn't be a more fitting theme for today than mindfulness and educator well being. As educators, we spend so much of our time supporting students, colleagues, and our school communities. Yet, it is equally important to make time for our own well being. Today's session will explore how the demands of everyday life can lead us to function on autopilot, why present moment awareness matters, and how our relationship with our thoughts, emotions, and experiences can influence the way we respond to challenges. To lead us through today's session, named The Power of Presence Mindfulness for Everyday Well-Being, we are delighted to welcome our facilitator, Ms. Safura Anwar. Ms.
Good evening,
Safura,
everyone.
good evening,
Good
ma'am.
evening.
Ms. Safura is an educational supervisor and well-being lead at GEMS Legacy School, Dubai, bringing over 17 years of experience in education across diverse learning environments. Over the past decade with GEMS Education, she has held both teaching and leadership roles, working collaboratively with students, teachers, and parents to foster inclusive, engaging, and future ready learning environments. In her leadership role, Ms. Safura has spearheaded a range of initiatives focused on student development, teacher engagement, and whole school well being. She has also supported the implementation of programs that strengthen both academic excellence and personal growth. As a certified well being coach and mindfulness practitioner, Ms. Safura is passionate about empowering educators with practical, evidence informed strategies that enhance well being, resilience, and classroom effectiveness. She believes that meaningful education extends beyond academics and is committed to nurturing environments where both learners and educators can thrive. Safura ma'am, thank you for joining us today. Before we begin the session, I would like to ask you one question.
Yes,
Your
please.
session, ex- your session explores how we often move through everyday life on autopilot. Before we begin, could you share one simple sign that may help an educator recognize that they need to pause and become more present?
Thank you, Upasana, first and foremost, for all the kind introduction there. To look at the strategies, that is something I'm going to be covering in today's session. It's not easy for us to look at all aspects of mindfulness together. 30 minutes is way too less. So I'm going to take all our educators, all my colleagues here, which I consider, and give them three strategies by the end of the session, which they will be able to use in their day to day life without looking at it as an extra task. So I will just do that at the end of 30 minutes, and I'm sure I'm going to get back to you and ask for the strategy from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's a wonderful thing. I'm sure all the educators will be very glad to know the strategies. Thank you so much, ma'am.
my pleasure.
To
Thank
everyone
you.
joining us today, we invite you to set aside distractions as far as possible and give yourself permission to pause, reflect, and be fully present over the next 30 minutes, as ma'am has requested. Over to you, Safura ma'am.
Thank you so much once again, Upasana. I'll just try sharing my screen. Yeah, I'm able to see it now. To start off with, once again, a very warm welcome to each one of you. I know how full an educator's life can be, not only with lesson planning, teaching, assessments, meetings, emails, parent conversation, and the list goes on and on and on, but also with the responsibilities that continue once the school day ends. We all return back to our families after school ends, to our children, to aging parents, household responsibilities, and the countless roles we balance every single day. So, before we begin, I'd simply like to say thank you for giving yourself these 30 minutes. Today's session isn't about adding another task or strategy like I just mentioned it to Upasana. It is instead an invitation to pause. It is to reconnect and also to perhaps experience the day you've already been living in a slightly different way. So before we begin, I'd like us, let me move on to the question I'd like to post. I would request each of you to take a moment to just in the chat box let us know how are you feeling right now in one word. How are you feeling at the moment? Quickly, if I may get your responses. How are you feeling right now? A one word answer in the chat box. Okay, I see somebody mentioning it as excited. Excited, all right. Thank you so much. Excited. Any other responses? I'll just wait for another 5 seconds and then we'll move ahead. Okay, somebody says tired. Okay, end of the day, I completely get that. Exhausted. Okay, very expected responses. And I'm sure by end of the session, you will be happy that you attended today's session. Yeah, so let's move ahead. Somebody else also mentioned as good. So basically, when we look at all these responses, I want you to notice something out of it. We are all attending the same webinar. We are all looking at the same screen. We are all listening to the same speaker. Yet, most of us have arrived with a different inner experience. I mean, it's very fascinating. As educators, what we usually do is we are wonderful at checking in with our students. The moment children enter or we enter a class, we always ask, "Good morning, how are you doing today?" But I want you all to reflect. When was that last time you genuinely checked in for yourself or with yourself? When was that last time when you genuinely checked in with yourself? It's not the "I'm fine" that I'm looking at, but how am I feeling right now? That simple act of noticing of how you are right now is where mindfulness begins. So, with that, let's move ahead because I have a few more questions for you all. Now, these are questions you can keep answering it in the chat box. Have you ever unlocked your phone only to completely forget why you picked it up? Or are there instances when you've made a cup of tea or coffee for yourself and realized that it's gone too cold even before you take in a sip? Or perhaps you've reached the bottom of a page in a book and then you suddenly realize, oh, I have absolutely no idea what I just read. If this has happened to you, please type yes in the chat box. The coffee goes cold all the time. I like that response, Jessica. That is such an honest response, and that is what we are looking at today. When the coffee is going cold all the time, it is a sign that we are entering the burnout. What do I do when I'm in that kind of a situation? The quick three strategies I will be sharing by the end of today's session, I'm sure is going to help you. We'll come back to it a little later. So I've got this response from many of you stating yes, and absolutely right. I have experienced it myself, but this is something that reminds us that we are wonderfully human. This is a human thing. I mean, we often miss out. There are times when, our bodies are often in one place while our minds are somewhere entirely different. So I'm going to now tell you a story. It is called the Lost Gold Coin story. I want all of you to very keenly listen to this story. There was one young man who was in a dark night returning back to his house. So while he was returning on his way back home, the surrounding was all dark. However, the street he was walking by, there were street lights and there was pretty good light in that part of it. So there on his way, he found an old man. I mean, and the old man was literally searching for something. So this young man walked up to him and asked him, "What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're searching for?" So then this old man said, "I am looking for my lost gold coin." So the young man, being very kind, he said, "Okay, let me also help you in, looking for the gold coin." After hours of search and after hours of, not being able to find the lost gold coin, the young man thought, "Okay, it's time for me to recheck with the old man as to where exactly he lost it." So he just asked the old man, "Where did you exactly lose it?" So then the old man pointed his finger to the dark area, and next to the dark area there was a tree. So he pointed to the tree and he said that, "I think I lost my gold coin somewhere there." So listening to this, the young man was absolutely, speechless. I'm sure the story may have brought a smile to our faces, and it mirrors, however, it mirrors our behavior in many ways. We often lose our peace, our happiness, our concentration, our focus, our productivity internally. Yet, what do? We continue searching for them externally. We continue looking for them, or we try to engross in some form of entertainment, some form of comfort, luxury, or simply by trying to do even more. But it is now time, dear colleagues, to develop the inner strengths and capabilities, and that is the only thing that will help us navigate life with greater clarity, balance, as well as resilience. So today's session is mindfulness, and mindfulness is one such approach that will in every way try to develop our inner strengths and capabilities. It allows us to cultivate these internal resources, leading, what does it lead to? Let's look at what it can do. So I'm moving forward here. It leads to enhanced concentration and greater productivity. So, this is the definition. What you see on your screen is the definition for mindfulness. And this is one of the most widely accepted definition, which comes from John Kabat-Zinn. He's one of the person known for mindfulness. So, paying attention on purpose in a particular way in the present moment without any form of judgment. In simple terms, mindfulness is nothing but awareness training. So, this is mindfulness in a nutshell. Now, let's look at, there are a lot of myths around mindfulness. So, let's look at what mindfulness is not about. Mindfulness is not about emptying the mind or stopping the thoughts that come to our mind or escaping reality, becoming emotionless, or sitting silently for us. These are not mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware. It is being aware of our thoughts. It is being aware of our emotions, some pleasant, some unpleasant. So during mindfulness practice, when you start with your mindfulness practice, there is no need to stop, no need to control or any kind of thought that arises or the bodily sensations that you feel. We simply become aware of it and we acknowledge our thoughts, our emotions, our body sensations without immediately judging them as good and as bad. So the aim isn't to control our experience. The aim is to become aware of what we feel, how we feel, what are our bodily sensations and our emotions. So moving ahead, let me take you to the next part of it. What you see on your screen are the three main foundations of mindfulness. Relaxation is letting go of unnecessary tension. Stillness is creating moments of pause. And vigilance is remaining awake and aware. And it's instead of living on an autopilot mode. I wanted to also bring into the webinar here the term called autopilot. What is this autopilot mode? The autopilot mode is when we are so busy moving from one task to the other that we are simply going through those motions. We, for example, in a day of a educator's life, we teach the lesson. While we are teaching the lesson, we ask questions, then we have meetings to attend, then we have books to correct, we have to prepare for the next day. So there are at times, I'm sure you can connect with me, even me being as an educator, that at times it becomes such an autopilot mode on that we are sometimes not fully present in what we are doing. And that's where mindfulness strategies that we are going to discuss today will come to help each of us. Now, moving ahead with the next part of it are the postures in which usually mindfulness is done. This is lotus, please. Apologies for the S being down. The first posture is the lotus posture. It's a very commonly used posture. Then we have the Japanese or the Caesar posture. Then we have the chair posture. And we also have the corpse posture. So these are the four postures in which usually mindfulness is practiced. Now, so far we have looked at what is mindfulness, what is not mindfulness, and now what we are going to do is we are going to the next part of the session where we are going to look at if mindfulness is simply paying attention or it is just awareness. Why is paying attention becoming so difficult? Now, I'll be giving you a few questions, and in the chat box, I'd like you to respond to a yes or a no. Yeah. So, the first question is: have you ever found yourself teaching one lesson while you're already thinking about the next? Have you experienced that? Please put in your responses in the chat box. Have you ever, while you are listening to a student, and behind your back, behind your mind, you are actually planning for the next day's meeting? Has that happened to you? Because it's happened to me many a times. Have you ever faced a situation where you're driving back home and then you realize that you don't remember what happened on the way? Or when you're sitting with your family while your mind is still replaying the events which happened at school? Have you experienced any of this? Okay, I get a combination of answers here, yes and a no. I have experienced it quite a bit, and that is why I wanted to do this session where I became a mindfulness practitioner. Our body sometimes is usually in one place, but our mind is somewhere else. And that's becoming increasingly common in the world we live in today because we are so used to the autopilot mode. So that brings me to the next main important thing, which is the attention crisis. So, as per studies, as per data, as per research, it says that on an average, our minds wander almost 48% of the time. Dear colleagues, 48% of the time our mind wanders. And on an average, many people unlock their phones around 150 times a day. Now, what happens with one notification, one email, one message, one interruption? It affects our attention. So, the challenge today isn't simply that we have too much information, but the challenge is also that our attention has become one of the most valuable and most limited resources. So, as educators, we are constantly giving our attention to others, to our students who need us, to our colleagues with whom we need to collaborate. Our parents need us, our families need us. But how often do we cautiously give our attention to the present moment? Perhaps that's why by the end of the day, many of us don't just feel physically tired, but we also feel mentally exhausted. Yeah. So moving ahead, I would like to show you something very, very important, which is known as grasping and aversion. So these are two, very common mental habits that we talk about in mindfulness. What is grasping? Grasping is basically our tendency to constantly chase pleasant experiences, right? For example, when we have summer vacation coming up, we are just looking at grasping those summer holidays, thinking that it will be good for us. I'll be happy with it. I'll be happy when my workload reduces or once the holidays begins. So that is grasping. We want to hold on to good things, the pleasant experiences. And aversion is completely opposite. It is our tendency to resist or push away from unpleasant experiences. So basically, grasping is pleasant experiences. We want to grab or grasp pleasant experiences, and aversion is the opposite, which is nothing but moving or pushing away unpleasant experiences. Now, what could be unpleasant experiences? A difficult conversation that I'm having with a colleague, and a very difficult email that has reached out from a parent, critical feedback I need to give another colleague, maybe a lesson that didn't go very well. So this is the main understanding of grasping and aversion. Now, what we need to understand is in our day to day life, we usually say think positive, but in mindfulness, we say accept. Be aware of all your thoughts, of all your body sensations, of all your emotions. Okay, the first thing is to acknowledge your thoughts, your body sensations, and your emotions. They are simple natural tendencies of the human mind. We become so caught up in that grasping is good, aversion is wrong. No, we need to accept everything the way it is. Mindfulness does not ask us to eliminate any of the experiences. In fact, it helps us notice them, acknowledge them, and respond with greater awareness rather than reacting immediately or automatically. So, this leads to one of my best parts of mindfulness, which I'm going to take you through. And this is something which I personally learned when I was going in for my mindfulness certification classes, which is called the stimulus and response. Now, what is this basically? This comes from the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who said, I want everybody to hear to this very, very carefully. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. That is what you can see on your screen. The stimulus and response, there is a space, right? In that space is our power to choose our response, right? So within this space is our power to choose what kind of response I want to give. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. I find this incredibly powerful because everyday situations arise that are outside our control. What could be a stimulus? A student misbehaving in class, a parent sending a difficult email, a colleague who has misunderstood us, maybe I'm going somewhere and there are traffic delays, maybe a sudden change of plan. All these stimuluses, when you see, are out of my control or beyond my control. But what is there which I can do? What happens next is what I can do through mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us create that small but powerful pause. This is the pause that I would like to focus on. The pause between what happens and how we respond instead of reacting immediately. I used to be a very aggressive person, but the moment this was introduced to me, I tried it because unless and until I try it, I'm not very convinced. So I tried this at home, And I tried pausing. I tried becoming aware of my feelings, my thoughts, my sensations. Then I understood, I chose what the way I want to respond. And at the end, when I responded, my children and my husband actually asked me if I was okay. So I'd like everybody to try this part of it, the gap between the stimulus and response. The broader the gap, the better response, the positive response. So, this is one important thing which I really wanted to share with all of you. Moving ahead, and how do we do this? I mean, how do we go ahead with the response and the stimulus and the response gap widening process? There we will use the stop practice. Now, what is the stop technique or stop practice? S for stop, because pause for just a minute, just like I showed you in that little diagram. First we pause, then T is for taking a mindful breath. So a deep breath, closing your eyes, just one small deep breath. Then O is for observing what is happening, not around. It is about you. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What sensations do I notice in my body? What is happening around me is a later part of it. And then finally, I proceed. I here do not respond immediately, but intentionally, right? I do not respond automatically, but intentionally. So imagine you're using this in your classrooms in front of your students. There may be students, who at times pose in statements or comments which you don't like. When we have this pause, when we have this gap expanding, then the response to the stimulus will become more thought of, and students would also benefit out of it. Yeah, so this we can use in our day-to-day life, with our family, with our children, with our students, with our colleagues. I have tried it and tested it, so I can for sure say that it is a strategy which really works. So before we leave to the next part of it, or before we move on, I'd like to leave you with one question. Where in your day could one mindful pause make the greatest difference? If you want, you can put in your responses in the chat box. I'll be happy to read. The question I would like to repeat again: where in your day could one mindful pause make the biggest difference? For me, it would be before I'm in, while I'm in a conversation with an angry parent, maybe while I'm in a conversation with a student who's done something which shouldn't have happened. And I can quote many more. So I would like you to put in your responses. Where in your day could one mindful pause you think would make the biggest difference? So with that thought in our mind, move on to the next part of it. Yeah, I can see a lot of you putting in your responses early morning. Yes, you can use it definitely early morning when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Absolutely. When we feel overwhelmed, at times we respond immediately. So when we are thoughtful, when we are mindful, when we give that pause, your gap extends or widens, and then your response will be a very different one. Conversation with daughter, I completely agree. I've experienced that, so I'm perfectly agreeing to what you said there. Controversy with others, yes, we need to listen more. We need to pause. We need to think and then respond. Thank you so much for your inputs. Let me move ahead. So, we have now covered what is mindfulness. We've covered what is not mindfulness. We have covered the stimulus and the response. Now we move on to mindfulness in everyday life. Like I mentioned earlier, to cover mindfulness in 30 minutes is absolutely impossible. I had done it for 5 complete days when I went in for my training. However, I'd like to give you an overview of the various practices which are done in mindfulness. So it is, mindfulness by breathing, mindfulness in walking, mindfulness in eating, mindfulness in body, mindfulness with your emotions, mindfulness with your thoughts, And there is one more which is not here, being aware of what you're aware. So even that is one practice of mindfulness. So the three simple practices which I'm going to leave you with today are: one, mindful breath; one, mindful walk; and one, mindful meal. Now, what is this one mindful breath? To practice one mindful breath, you could, when you have that stimulus and response, and you're a person like me, maybe who's very aggressive and who wants to just respond, you could try this one mindful breath at that point of time. That will definitely increase the band or the gap between your stimulus and response. Now, what is this one mindful breath? It's just for you to sit in one of the posture, close your eyes, take a deep breath, breathe in, inhale, and breathe out. While you inhale, you need to follow the full length of the breath. So you observe the breath while you're inhaling, observe the breath while you're exhaling. You're not going to change anything. You're just going to focus on that breath. Try doing this, and I'm sure that is going to bring a lot of difference and increase that gap between your stimulus and response. It really worked. Now, one mindful walk. This was something very interesting which came across when I went for this course, for the certification. We walk in a very autopilot manner. We usually don't think of how we are walking. However, the one very good way of pausing, or a very good practice of mindfulness, is also one mindful walk. We had an exercise that we did where we were asked to, just focus our eyes down on the floor, and we had to take one step at a time. Our entire mind had to be in our step that we took. When you do this, you will see a difference. And when can you do this? You don't have to keep aside time for you to do this. While you're at work, while you're moving from one class to the other, focus on your walk. Focus on the rhythm of your walk. Focus on your body motion. It definitely, again, is a very good mindfulness technique. So, moving ahead, the next part of it would be mindful eating. So, for mindful eating, I'm sure many of us here have the habit of multitasking while we eat. Please give yourself at least the first 5 bites of what you eat without doing anything else, but with the focus of what you're eating or sipping. And how do we do it? We notice the colors of the food that we are eating, the aroma, the texture, its flavor. Notice the act of chewing. Have you ever thought of it? Have you ever been aware of the process of chewing? I would suggest you try this. It really works. And perhaps even, pause for a moment to appreciate the nourishment that the meal is providing. For educators, I do know that even a cup of tea or coffee, between lessons can become a mindful moment, because we are in a rush to drink and just get into the classes. But I would request, if you can take that first 3 to 5 sips being mindful, being aware, that is the real essence of mindfulness. So I think these three are very simple exercises which we can all look at. Now, what happens when we start doing these practices? There are, elaborate practices which I am not going to be dealing today, because that will take a lot more time. However, in future, if I get another session, definitely I would like to delve into every aspect of mindfulness. However, these are my three takeaways today. And what is the ripple effect that we would get out of it? We would, as educators or as human beings, be able to listen better, respond more patiently. We can build stronger relationships. So these are many positives of the simple mindfulness aspects that we can follow. We can create calmer classrooms. We can create a calmer self. And when we as educators thrive, learners thrive. And when we do this at home, the entire environment changes. So let me move on to the reflection part of it. I would like you to take a quiet moment now. Think about what resonated the most from all that I've been telling you today. And I want you to complete this sentence. From today, I will be more mindful of dash. Here, there's no right or wrong answers. It's up to you. From the session, what have you taken today? From today, I will be more mindful of what? If you could please put it up in the chat box, I would be happy to read your responses. From today, I will be more mindful of. For me, it is always, my thoughts. For me, I will be more mindful to increase or widen the gap between the stimulus and response. So whatever has been your takeaway, so we've discussed about the stimulus and response. We've discussed about the three strategies by which you could practice mindfulness. We learned the stop strategy to increase the pause. So, whatever is your takeaway, I would like to see that response in the chat box. From today, I will be more mindful of my words and reactions. Thank you so much. That is a very good response. Anybody else? Mindful of my words, actions, and responses. Yes, thank you so much. And how am I going to be more mindful? I am going to be more aware. I am going to not judge my thoughts. I'm going to let my thoughts come to me, both good and bad. I will acknowledge my thoughts, yeah, and then I will be non judgmental towards my thoughts. Mindfulness in actions. Thank you so much. More mindful of people's rubbish saying. Yes, well, here, when there is something which you do not like, the best part of it will be the stimulus is, when people talk inappropriately. So we will increase our gap, we will follow the stop strategy, and we will respond in such a way where it is more thoughtful rather than reactive. So, thank you so much to all those who put in their responses. So, the key takeaways from today's session quickly, mindfulness is basically awareness, and this awareness creates or helps to create or choose our responses. Small moments create lasting change, and I'd suggest if you can at least out of the three mindfulness practice, choose any one to start practice. Moving ahead, if you would like to connect with me or if you would like to know more about mindfulness, these are my details. I'd be happy to connect. I would be happy to share more of mindfulness practices with you all. Since this was just a half an hour session, there are many detailed practices which I was unable to complete. So, this is my contact details. Moving ahead, I would like to end with the quote: you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. You can't stop the thoughts, the feelings, the bodily sensations, the emotions that come to your mind. Acknowledge them and surf on them. So, mindfulness is not about changing the world around us, it's about changing the way we experience it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Safura ma'am. That session gave us an opportunity not only to understand mindfulness, but also to pause and experience it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Upasana.
The idea of pausing with purpose feels particularly relevant today as we at CENTA have reflected on the last 6 years of CENTalks and designed the next version of CENTalks 2.0. More on that later. We will now move into a conversation that brings together two significant moments in the CENTalks journey. For this discussion, I would like to invite Rastogi Laishra, Learning Products at CENTA, who will moderate the panel. Joining her as panelists are Ms. Safura Anwar, who just conducted the last session in CENTalks, Season 1, and Mr. Syed Mustafa Hussain, who facilitated the very first CENTalks in March 2020. Mr. Mustafa is a founding member of Focus High School, Hyderabad, and currently leads the PYP and MYP continuum as Director of Curriculum. His first sentence, titled Using Online Tools to Teach, supported educators as they navigated the sudden shift towards online teaching. Welcome, Mustafa, sir, and over to you, Rastogi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Upasana. Hello, Safura ma'am. Hello, Mustafa sir. Great meeting
Hi.
you. More than a moderator, I just feel very honored to be in this panel with you all. Safura ma'am, from our conversations with Global Teacher Meet, I remember how you moderated the panel with school children, how that session was well received, and we have live recordings of that. We are still receiving feedback for that session. For thank you for joining us today.
My
And
pleasure.
we were just walking through your session on mindfulness. A lot of good comments that I just want to walk across. And Mustafa sir, you were there for our very first session. You were there for our 300th session not too long ago. And your session, the first session, is also among our highest top rated session till today, up to date. So thank you so much for being
Oh,
here on
wow.
this special occasion. Yes, we
So
have a lot of
I'm equally delighted to be here.
Great, thank you, so much. Just to begin this session, like quick round of questions that needs to come in. But before that, I just want to tell everyone that this panel with Safura ma'am over here and Mustafa sir here brings together both the beginning of CENTalks, which was conducted by Mustafa sir, and the grand finale of CENTalks 1.0. Before we move on to the launch of CENTalks 2.0 on 27th August, I think more details will be shared by Upasana at the end of the session, so please get glued on to it. Um, yes, so let's move forward. So, sir, when you think back and look at the first CENTalks that you took back in March 2022, so do you still remember the glimpses of that? What the educators needed at that time, and how the session continued, how the platform that served teachers still continues to bring in all such teacher engagement and conversation. So, like just a bit of reflection, as Sapura ma'am has also mentioned, how have your journey been so far?
Right. So I have very vivid memories of that session, and after that, I also participated in a lot of other sessions organized by CENTA Talks, and CENTA Talks became a gold standard for online education for teachers, uh, for which I'm very thankful to CENTA and all the people who made that happen. And I could see that initially at that time we were going through lockdowns and COVID, and
Yes.
we had to keep the show running. So the teachers were more interested in digital tools, in using digital strategies, and from there we have now moved on to some very important questions like moving from how do I teach to how do I teach well. We are now more, we need more better pedagogies now. We need more human-centric strategies now. So the question from how do I teach has now come to how do I teach well, sustainably, and meaningfully.
And on that note, Safura ma'am, like I just wanted to build on to what Sir just mentioned. In that question of building sustainability, there is a lot of burnout that teachers faces, right? It comes hands on. And you were mentioning about balance to do that. How crucial those things comes into play, maintaining that balance, how crucial it becomes at a point at this age of technology.
I think, like you mentioned, Upasana, and like Mustafa sir mentioned, a lot of advancements have happened over a period of time. I mean, from where we were and where we've come, it's a long way. However, a lot of focus has always been on the student. I mean, the student's well being. It's now time for us to look at the teacher. the
Right.
educator. And that's where we can talk about the burnout. So today's session, what I did on mindfulness, I mean, when I joined the course, it was not for me to only be a good educator, but also a good mom, a good human being, so on and so forth. Because at different points of time, burnout comes in a very bad way. So I think the gap between the stimulus and response, which I was talking about in today's session, will avoid the burnout part of it. See, when you look at educators, they all want to learn. They all want to bring in new technology, try it in their classes. However, there are times when the classes may not go well. There are times when classes can go extremely well. So that's when the grasping and the aversion comes in. So when we get more mindful about our thoughts and our bodily sensations and our emotions, automatically teachers will be able to balance and navigate from that burnout.
Right, right. Um, and Mustafa sir, when Safura ma'am is talking about reducing the burnout through mindfulness activities or practices among the teachers, how crucial it becomes for a school leader or the leadership team in the school to take a stance on it and implement or emphasize those practices among their own teachers.
So I really like the closing thoughts of Miss Safura when she kind of projected it very loudly and boldly that the waves will come and all we have to do is know how to surf those waves. So I think uh, well-being is crucially important now because expectations, the bar of expectations have risen, and we are now focusing on more human-centric capabilities, human-centric interactions, human-centric ecologies in the academies or in the institutions, where we really want a genuine human connection. Now, if you see right from a very turbulent times, we were flung into a very massive, or a very higher technological orbit. And AI, that was a time when AIs were rolling out, and now I think when teachers are at the risk of being overwritten by or written off by the things that AI has to offer, I think all ecosystems will now be more human centric, and therefore well-being of an educator stands out. It has to be central, it has to be critical and mission centric. So
Right.
all educational institutions, all great educational leaders are now investing and focusing and planning for educator well-being, which is a part of curriculum now, which is not some kind of support as we thought we initially offering to teachers from the school side. It is now curriculum centric. Yeah.
Right. I know, completely agree with that. And I think Safura ma'am, from global education point of view, I think you can add on to that key. It is still being implemented and then being talked about highly in your education scenario.
Yes, I completely agree with Mustafa sir. It is the center, ecocentric. Now, I mean, it's become the center of education process. However, here I would also like to bring in one more point. It is not always about what we get from others. Well-being first needs to be cultivated intrinsically. So once we start cultivating the mindfulness habits or the well-being habits internally, we will be able to navigate better as educators in a very competitive education industry, is what I would like to say. Because it's not always about what others say, it's about you
Right.
taking the thoughts, you taking what others speak, what others say. However, are you able to widen that gap between the stimulus and the response? I may have a lot of stimuluses coming in, then it can be negative, it can be positive. Am I able to respond in an appropriate manner while I'm talking to my colleagues, while I'm talking to the parents, while I'm having a conversation with students? So well-being, I think, is more so now we need to look at an intrinsic point of well-being. Yes, definitely. When we have the management, when we have the leaders supporting, it becomes a more positive environment.
Right, right. Absolutely. When you yourself do better, it shows in all aspects of your life and your work life as well.
True.
We are talking about mindfulness because we also want to talk about pauses because this is sent us, in this particular format being the finale 1.0. And I just wanted to collate your thoughts with you to over here and then talk about what is that one thing that you would want to retain even though we go for a launch of CENTalks 2.0? Some practices, some things that CENTA still continues on, some values that we add on. What are your expectations and what are the things that you still would want to retain on all those upcoming sessions? I think it would be like a closing statement from both of you.
Okay, so I think this pause is as essential as imagine a symphony, and you can imagine pauses are as equal as the notes that we hear to make it an entirely new experience. I also imagine this as when the archers, uh, pull back the bowstring. They're not going away from the target. They're actually aiming for it, and they're going to get it. So this synergy that you will gather from that you have gathered from the CENTA Talks 1.0 can be fed forward into the next season, uh, and obviously when I attended a few educational conclaves in the last few months, and I can see that all international educators and forums are desperately trying to figure out how we can survive in the age of AI, as educators, as educational leaders, as curriculum developers. um, how can we regulate AI for consumption uh, at all levels for all stakeholders in an ecosystem? So we need discussions and conversations on how human centric can our pedagogies be. Presence, the human presence, the human connection, um, uh, the human side. I mean, this is my favorite thing when I say that um, the only way to uh, lead or to be successful in the age of AI is to be more and more human. So I think human 2.0 must be expressed, must be groomed to the next season of these great conversations. And please keep doing that because you are affecting thousands of educators who have sometimes no access to professional development. So this is one of the biggest services that somebody can offer, and I wish you all the best in that.
Thank you so much, sir. Taking down every note of those sentences and like very beautifully put. Thank you so much, Safura ma'am.
For me, CENTalks, I would say over the years, it's become more than a series of sessions. I think it has been a space of, shared reflections, practical ideas, a lot of conversations which were happening. However, in the upcoming, the new 2.0, I'd like to see something more human centric, just like Mustafa sir mentioned, where we are not confined only to the chat box where we can connect with people, and maybe more of panel discussions. I think that gives a lot of inputs and arena for us to think beyond. So I'm looking at more of panel discussions happening rather than webinars. Yeah, webinars are usually helpful, but I think the human centric approach where we have, intake or input by few people adds on more to it.
Right, great. Thank you. Thank you. And I would also want the audience to let us know even their opinions, views on what they are expecting from CENTalks 2.0 as well in the comments box. And we will very soon disclose all the details on 27th August. So please join that session as well. So it will be very surprising and a big event for all of us here. So thank you so much. Again, Safura ma'am, Mustafa sir, thank you for taking time out and joining this very, very, very special occasion with all of us here today. From the bottom of my heart, thank you
With
everyone.
CENTA, the pleasure is always mine.
Same here. I completely second that.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. Have a great evening. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
You all
much.
have a
Thank
great
you.
evening too. Bye bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.
Upasna, over to you.
Thank you, Rastogi. Thank you, Safura ma'am and Mustafa sir, for that wonderful conversation. As we come to the close of today's session, we would like to take a moment to celebrate the journey of CENTalks. Please leave comments about your experience and memories with CENTalks if you haven't done it already. There are a couple of comments that I want to read out from the chat. Dr. Y.N. Rao says, I'm refreshing my very old teaching practices with the help of CENTA Talks. Thank you so much, Dr. Y.N. Rao. Anupama Jha says, CENTalks is enlightening, inspiring, valuable, and fruitful. MKJ1993 says, I hope CENTalks continues to retain its spirit of collaboration, innovation, lifelong learning, inspiring educators to connect, grow, and make a positive impact in their classrooms. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you for sharing your memories, reflections, and suggestions with us. They will play an important role in shaping the next chapter of CENTalks. Now, before we sign off, block August 27th, 5 to 6 p.m. IST for the launch of CENTalks 2.0. Please make sure to block your calendars so that you do not miss it at all. Give a thumbs up or any emoji that you like to say that you are joining us. It will be a very special session where we will unveil the next chapter of CENTalks and share what's in store for our educator community. We would love for each one of you to be a part of that moment. Until then, thank you for being such an important part of this journey. Take care, keep learning, and we will see you on 27th August. To receive your record of participation for today's session, please fill the form we have shared in the chat box. I repeat, to receive your record of participation for today's session, please fill the form we have shared in the chat box. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.